I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. In this episode of the show, you have to get that and pay for it. Act like it's yours. Treat it well and treat it with respect. Sense of pride in what you're doing. As a martial arts instructor, it encourages you to teach at the highest levels. And teaching at the highest levels means that I have to better myself. And to help keep this kind of ownership mindset for them is, what do you need in your business to make this operate? And I say it like that, in your business right here. Hey guys, welcome back to the Team Chip Podcast. I'm excited to be back with you again today. Another solo run. Here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about empowering your instructors to take ownership. So if you're not a martial arts school owner and you're just thinking that your team, I don't really like the word staff. It sounds okay, but it almost sounds a little hierarchical, and I try not to be too hierarchical with people. I'm not a big fan of like position and titles and all this kind of mess. I think that's probably because my mom, whenever I was a kid, would say things like, never worry or grovel to or be intimidated by someone who has lots of zeros on their paycheck or lots of letters behind their name, because they get up every morning, they put their pants on just like you. So I'm not a big title guy, but so your team, let's just think in terms of your team, how this impacts. So we want to think about empowering our instructors and our team to take ownership in our business. We want to find ways to get their skin in the game. And so I think today you might get some really good nuggets. I hope so. Really worked hard on this, and hope you guys enjoys today's show. So taking ownership, why does that matter so much? I've alluded to it a little bit, but whenever you own something, like you see those bumper stickers on cars that like, drive it like you stole it. Well, what that means is you don't own it. You don't care. So you're going to hammer it and slide the corners and jump the humps and all of these things because you just don't care, right? Ownership kind of implies a sense of skin in the game, a sense of care. Like, I care about what's going on here. I care about what's happening here. So ownership is difficult to mimic, I guess. It's difficult to get people to take ownership sometimes of things. But anyway, I have a lot of mixed thoughts about that. Whenever I was raised as a kid, did I do it well and have always done it well? Absolutely not. But I was raised and told, like, you go to work for someone and you're using their equipment. They had to work their butts off to get that and pay for it. Act like it's yours. Treat it well and treat it with respect. And I say that after, 30 years running our school. I can't count how many vacuum cleaners we've bought. And I've walked in and went, hey guys, anybody know what happened to the vacuum cleaner? And I get a bunch of blank looks. And it's like, come on guys, what happened to the vacuum cleaner? Because you're running that vacuum cleaner across the floor, sucking up pennies and rocks and maybe a sock and whatever else. And all of a sudden the vacuum cleaner's fried, right? So anyway, how do we get our instructors, how do we get our teams, our staffs to take ownership of what they're going? So just going to be running through some ideas on that. But I think in the martial arts world particularly, and we've talked about this in some podcasts, we have a moral imperative upon us to teach a code of ethics, right? Because if I'm teaching little Susie, little Johnny how to actually take someone's arm and fold it backwards, that could be problematic if they don't know how to, when to, and why to, right? So, when you bring in this moral imperative, it's important that we kind of take ownership of what we're teaching people, right? In order to make important the idea that I need to share that moral imperative with those guys and give them some boundaries on when to, how to, and why, right? So it's important that, let me back up. So sometimes when I'm talking to my young instructors, and they're asking a question, they're like, okay, when little Johnny or little Susie does X, how do I handle that situation? Because man, it really frustrates me because, they know what they're supposed to be doing over here, but they're over here doing this, right? Maybe they're talking out or they're touching another kid in line. And I'll say something like, hold up, let's think about this for just a minute. If you were old enough and you were married and you had life moving forward and you had your own child, how would you want someone to approach your child about that? I'm trying with my words to create a sense of ownership. And I try to get those guys to look at each student on that mat as if it was their child. And I think when we do that, it gives some perspective to things like, oh, I might be a little more gracious and patient if it was my child. Now, I know sometimes whenever my kids get pushed harder than any other kid, but I try to help them to get a sense of ownership, a sense of, how would you want someone to treat that person? And if they can't wrap their head around having their own child, which sometimes, young instructors maybe think, well, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. I go, do you have a younger sister or younger brother? Oh, I do. Well, how do you want someone treating them? So we have to find creative ways to encourage people. And those are just little side check-ins and conversations that we do to help them to understand the concept of ownership and how to handle things better whenever they're teaching or leading, etc. So ownership, another thing about ownership is, we're talking kind of about why. Ownership shows a sense of maturity. I alluded to it earlier, but whenever I was raised, it was like, hey, if you're using someone else's equipment, treat it like it's yours. And the idea that my parents were trying to put in my head was, when it's yours, you will treat it better typically than if it's someone else's. A back to the bumper sticker, drive it like you stole it, right? So, ownership shows a certain level of maturity, and you want your team to be mature and act mature in the way that they're doing things, and also you have a sense of pride in what you're doing. So, one of those things that we want people to do is have pride. And I know pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. I don't mean be so proud that they're so egotistical they can't operate, or their head's so big they can't get through the door. But I do believe there's a healthy amount of pride in doing a job well and looking at that and going, yes, I did that. And I did that good. And I did that to the best of my ability. Not running around and gloating about what you did, but inside feeling good about that accomplishment, checking that box and doing a good job. Something that stands out in my head right here is an MLK, Martin Luther King quote. I'm going to read it. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep the streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. I don't know. I think that's pretty powerful. That shows ownership. That shows some maturity. That shows, to me, that quote shows kind of a sense of pride. Like, I get to look back and go, man, I'm really proud that I did that. So anyway, this concept of ownership, I think we've defined it well enough. But it's super important, as opposed to having a bunch of people that just don't care on your team. We want people that care and that, again, have their skin in the game. That's a term that we use a lot. How do we get people to get their, skin in the game? So how does this benefit, the students in the school whenever your people have a sense of pride? When you have a sense of pride in what you're doing, I think as a martial arts instructor, it encourages you to teach at the highest levels. And teaching at the highest levels means that I have to better myself all the time, and I have to be a constant learner. I have to be constantly studying. We talk about teaching tactics sometimes whenever we're talking in the podcast. We talk about these all the time with our leadership team and our instructors. Teaching tactics are kind of tangible things that we can almost check off, like, did you use the 3x3 rule? Did you say their name? Appropriate body contact, like a high five, and make eye contact with them at least, 3 times during that class. Did you use a good praise, correct praise? Hey, little Susie, man, you had a really sharp kick, but can you yell a little bit louder on the next one for me? And then she throws the next kick, throws a big yell, and you're going, man, that was the yell I've been looking for the whole time. I knew you had it inside of you. Let's do that some more, right? So anyway, the point of that is that ownership and that sense of pride. I think it really kind of pushes us to teach at the highest level, which means engaging those teaching tactics and engaging those things that we learn to the best of our ability. And another thing about ownership and teaching at the highest levels, I think, is it pushes us more towards the concept and idea of modeling behavior as opposed to just telling. I'm going to probably say something that stirs the pot a little bit here, but I've never been a fan of the term coach. And I've probably talked about this a little bit before, but whenever I was a kid, the coach was the guy that was standing at the sideline who couldn't see his toes when he looked down because he was a little out of shape. And he was chewing tobacco or snuff and cussing at kids, screaming, run harder, hit harder, all of these things. And in my head, there was kind of a disconnect always there. Like, can you come show us something? Like, can you show us how to do this a little bit better? And so modeling to me, I think of our team as teachers, instructors. They're instructing instead of coaching. Coaching to me kind of, insinuates I'm kind of at the outside telling you what to do. An instructor gets beside you and does it with you and shows you how to do it. And that's kind of the way I think of it in my mind. And so I think having a sense of pride and ownership in what we do pushes us a little more towards the modeling side. An instructor who gets beside you and shows you, hey, do it like this, is modeling a behavior as opposed to standing over here and telling you what you should be doing or what how you should be doing it. So modeling is super, super important in parenting our kids and teaching and instructing in all these different areas. Don't just stand at the side and bark. Get in there and engage and show people and inspire them. It's an inspiration thing. Another thing is authenticity. Taking ownership is, I think it lends itself to a sense of authenticity. So if I take ownership of the teaching I'm doing, that means that I'm also probably training, setting myself up to be a good model and a good instructor, which also means that I probably believe in what I'm doing, right? And it's easier to teach something that you believe in instead of something that you're kind of like, yeah. It's like, if I'm going to sell lemons, I really need to like lemons, right? It's hard to sell something you don't like because inauthenticity comes through in your actions. People aren't stupid. They can sense inauthenticity. They can feel it, whenever you're just following the script or doing what you think you're supposed to do. They can also feel it when you're teaching from your heart and out of your passion because you truly believe in what you're doing. So again, I think ownership brings a sense of authenticity. It pushes us towards modeling, using our teaching tactics better, growing our minds and expanding and all the time. So, creating a culture of ownership, I guess kind of the next thing is, we talked about kind of why. And now it's like, how do we create that culture of ownership? How do we get our team and our staff and our instructors to buy into that? So I'm going to run through some things here. And to me, this is going to be a powerful section, I think. So first you got to state it, be clear in who you are, your mission, your motto, your belief. Our motto at Team Chip is empowering people, giving people power through the personal pursuit, the pursuit of personal martial arts journey. So, it's their pursuit of martial arts. It's their personal journey. So empowering people through the pursuit of personal martial arts excellence by creating world-class martial artists with a servant's heart and a beginner's mind. That motto we restate over and over and over with our team. We talk through it, we break it down, and what does that mean to us? And we try to get them to understand it, to own it, to personify that, right? A servant's heart as Jesus all day long. We serve. A beginner's mind, no ego. We walk on the mat. We're prepared with an open mind, ready to grow. And so anyway, back to creating that culture of ownership, state it, have clear boundaries and expectations. We use the Team Chip acronym to help with this. We've talked about this, but the T is teachable, E is excellent, A is accountable, M is motivated, C is courteous, H, honest, I, inspirational, P is perseverance. We filter our decisions through those things. And sometimes in our conversations with our team, like, hey, in that scenario, were you being teachable? Were you being excellent? Or were you being your best? Or were you accountable whenever you showed up late that day? So constantly stating who we are and keep it in front of people, a mission, motto, belief statement, stuff like that, they don't matter if they just hang on the wall. They matter when we talk about them, when we study them, when we keep bringing them back up, we keep presenting them to the team, we keep putting that vision and that mission back in front of people over and over and over. We like to have reminders of this ownership mindset everywhere we go. And I stole this from Hanshi Dave Kovar, a mentor and a good friend. But your 5 core beliefs: we're the friendliest place in town. In our leadership and staff meetings, we talk about this all the time. Are you presenting yourself in a way that you appear to be the friendliest place in town? We're the cleanest place in town. We only teach great classes, never just good classes. And sometimes class, you come through and the class a little bit off and like, hey, is this a great class? And they know, oh, I'm not at my best. I'm not teaching that great class. I'm kind of teaching a good class right now. We're excellent at parent-student communication. We are excellent at that communication. Every day looking for opportunities to recruit new students. So anyway, these 5 core beliefs that we've borrowed from Hanshi have been really powerful as well, because everywhere our team kind of looks, there are things that we have in place to remind them of that culture of ownership. We got to keep it in front of people all the time. Another thing is constant reminders. I have check-ins with the team. I have meetings, staff meetings, leadership meetings, instructor meetings, chief instructor meetings, location meetings. And one of the things I remind the team of is, yes, I'm Chip. And sometimes people go, yeah, your name's on the building. My name may be on the building, but I'm here to serve you. And so some questions I ask all the time to help keep this kind of ownership mindset for them is, what do you need in your business to make this operate? And I say it like that, in your business right here to make this operate. What do you need from me? How can I help you? Are you hung up anywhere? Is there a stump you're on that I can get you past? Do you have all the tools you need? Is there something you're needing? I even created in a Google Sheet a wish list, and I've told the team and I've shared everyone, and I go through it once a month. I glance into it, see if anyone's added anything or kind of where we are. That's your wish list, your dream list. Like, what are things you need to operate your business right here well? And I'm trying to, again, encourage a sense of ownership from them. So I pop in there sometimes and, they might need an iPad for a kiosk, or they might need something. And sometimes they put those things in there, and then I can talk to them. I kind of know where their head's at too. Like, okay, they feel like they need something. Well, if I can do it, I'm going to get that for them. Or first I might talk to them and go, how's that going to help you? Right. But I'm constantly trying to be the servant to the team, even though I guess you could say I'm kind of the owner and the alpha person in the business, but that's not the way I look at it. Another thing that we do to encourage ownership all the time, and that culture of ownership, is we put things in front of them that also teach that culture. So we do book studies. We do reads. Like right now we're reading a book, a really neat book with a lot of good kind of timeless, positive concepts called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And so every instructor meeting, we share some nuggets and talk a little bit about what we've learned from that book. The last book we did was 25 Ways to Win with People, John Maxwell. Amazing book. But these books also parallel the culture that we want. And those are the things that we're trying to propagate all the time by keeping those things in front of the team. Another thing that we do to build this culture and to keep this alive is we give our team opportunities to go train at outside events. We go to the ProMac events, which are put on by Kovar Systems, and our team, they get a chance to train with other schools, other school owners, other instructors, other leadership people that are growing like themselves. And we try to put them in environments where they can learn and grow. We also work really hard in propagating this culture of ownership all the time to involve. I think this one's huge. This is monster. I have been labeled in the past the benevolent dictator. I'm not sure what to think about that at times, but I try to always involve our instructors and our team in decisions around most everything that we do in our business. Like, hey guys, we're thinking about trying this new thing over here, or shifting the schedule over here, or making this adjustment to the way the testings flow, or we're thinking about making an adjustment to curriculum because we feel like this would be a little more authentic or a little more functional for the students. What do you think about that? And we give them a chance to have a voice. And I make it very clear up front, you have a voice. And if, there are 10 of us at the table discussing this, and there are 2 of you that aren't on board with it, but the other 8 are, and we decide to go with the 8, the 2 have to get on the bus and own it like it's theirs and run with it. And everyone agrees to that. We agree to that up front. I can't have 2 guys in the background going, "Wah, that didn't work for me. I don't like what they're doing." If we all agree, we're going to move forward. And if we need to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments as we go, but we're very clear up front about these expectations. And likewise, there might be 2 that have a great thought, idea, and are on board for something, and we agree to go with the 2 and the other 8 are off. That's kind of rare, but those can happen too. The 8 know once the decision's made, it's behind us. There's nothing else to scruff about, man. Let's get on the bus and get busy, right? And so we try to involve our instructors all the time in the decision-making process, and hopefully that helps them to feel like I had a voice. I got to be a part of that conversation, a part of the shifts and the evolution of what's happening as the business moves forward. We constantly use feedback as ways. So I mentioned it already, but I do check-ins, staff meetings, instructor meetings. But another thing that we do that I think might be a little bit unique is after every event, we typically, and let me qualify it, bigger events, belt testings, tournaments, if we have, our trunk or treat pops to mind because we just had that recently where we have like 1,000 kids come through and we try to be a positive influence and give them some candy and have, give them a good place. After big events like that, we always have a post-event debrief. We just had one this past weekend. We had a belt testing, a normal color belt and stripe testing for our students. And afterwards, all the instructors sat down at a table. We fed them. And at that table, we got to share feedback. And I'm going to give you a fun way to do that. A fun way to do that is it's a game that we do. We play it at home with our kids around the dinner table at times. We don't do it every night, but we do it pretty commonly. Is we say, I want your high, your low, and a buffalo from the event today. And what that does is the low obviously is what was something that didn't go right, that you feel like could have been better. What was an anomalous situation that was off, down, bad. What was your high? What was something that just was like, wow, yes, that was amazing. And then what was a buffalo? The buffalo was kind of fun. That was something that shocked you. Like, whoa, didn't see that coming. But usually it's a fun, good thing, but it's a buffalo. And so we use this format in post testings and post events sometimes with our young instructors because it helps them to engage. If I just go, hey guys, give me feedback. This is what I get, silence. And eyes kind of rolling around in heads like, what does that mean? So again, we're talking about how we create this culture of ownership, but by giving them a voice to give us feedback. And then we'll talk about it. Sometimes they come back with a low that's like, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't feel that myself. And we'll discuss it for just a minute and show them how important that is to us. Like, wow, I'm glad you picked up on that. That's really awesome. And typically these are packed with highs and some pretty funny buffaloes. But, now and then you get the lows and it's like those lows. And we don't just focus on the lows. We focus on the highs. We focus on the buffaloes. We kind of focus everywhere. So I'm going to kind of run back through that list because I think that list is really important. How do we create a culture of ownership? State it and be clear. Motto, mission, vision, keep people on board with what's going on. We have, reminders everywhere. The acronym, our actual, the teamship acronym, our actual motto, I ran through the 5 core beliefs from Hunchy Kovar, friendliest place, cleanest place in town. We're constantly bringing those things up and discussing those things and using them as tools like, hey, were we the friendliest today? Or were we, if we feel that things are a little bit off? And instead of walking up to a staff member or a team member and going, you were not good today, hey, do you feel like you were the best today? Do you feel like you were friendly? Or do you feel like the place is clean? And they kind of get them to look around and take ownership, right, of what's going on. So, keep those constant kind of reminders. Now, other reminders that I talked about a little bit right here is I remind the team all the time in staff meetings. One of the things I try to close most meetings with is, do you need anything directly from me? Is there anything I can help you with? Are you stuck anywhere? And if so, please talk to me about that so I can help you. Try to remind them constantly that they're the owners. I'm just the guy here helping to serve, helping them to get through the roadblocks and give them the tools they need to succeed, to touch lives in a way that most businesses can't. Books to study. We do studies. Guys, don't be shy about requiring your team to read a book. I try to find books that are, I don't want to say simple, but, short, concise, to the point, maybe kind of fun to make it interesting for the team to read so that it's, engaging for them. But also if you have kids that are in school, it's not overwhelming either. There are 3 or 4 or 5, pages maybe per chapter and the points are really clean and clear. That way it doesn't overwhelm them and you're not asking too much. Give your team opportunities to grow, take them to events where they can train, involve your team in the decision-making around the business, especially, the everyday operations. I'm not saying if you're thinking about buying a new, property as opposed to renting, you need to involve your young team in that. But if you're thinking about making a schedule change or making some small adjustments here, a little tweak to the curriculum, ask them what they think. How do they feel? How would that impact you on the mat teaching? Do you think that's more functional for you or not? And use feedback. And the feedback I'm talking about is setting them down after events and having those debriefs. So those are just ways that you can, kind of build and create that culture. So empowering your instructors to lead. We're talking about taking ownership and building ownership, but now, what do we do to empower those guys to lead? And I think part of it is giving them be specific in the responsibilities that you give them, and follow through. Sometime or follow up. That's a better word. Follow up. Sometimes we give out a responsibility and we never check back on it, right? And there's a balance here, because if I check back every day or 3 times a day, kind of micromanaging. You got to show a level of trust. So give specific responsibilities and allow the trust for them to get it done. But do check back in every now and then. How's that going? How's that feeling? Is there anything I can do to help you with that? Another thing that I think is important in empowering your instructors to lead is keep the office open. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before. I'm going to beat on it just a little bit more. But what I mean by that is share things like this. In the martial arts school, this is huge. So I'm going to get a little specific to martial arts school here. Your drops, your signups, share those things with the team. So we'll use drops as an example. So we are averaging about a 3.3% drop rate. And that means about 3.3 out of 100 are dropping each month is roughly what that means. So it's actually good in the industry. The industry standard is, for a good drop rate is 4% or below. I know guys that run in the 1% and 2% range, but most people run above 4, honestly. So we're at about a 3.3 for the last 3 months. I was just looking at it last night, but here's the point. So we have an instructor meeting once a week. In that meeting, I ask our program director, hey, share our drops for the month, right? And not only share the drops, especially if there have been some during that week that are kind of, they're relevant, they're time relevant because they just happened this week. Share them, but don't just share that we had, 3 drops this week. Share their names. Make that person a person, not just a number. And the reason I say that is because it's really cool not cool when people drop, but when the drop happens, you share the name and you see one of the young instructors' eyes get real big and their mouth pops up and they go, oh my gosh, I just worked with him last week and he was killing it. And we go, how does that make you feel? And they go, it breaks my heart. Good. Write them a card right now. They're awesome. Shoot them a text through our CRM. Reach out to them. Think about it. We're talking about taking ownership and empowering the instructors to lead, right? No matter how young an assistant instructor is, they can sit down and write a note to a kid or an adult student, someone that's quit on them. And so what I mean by, let's go back to keep the office open. Keep it open by sharing with them not just the numbers. The numbers are huge too, but sharing with them the names of people so they keep it real for them. I alluded to this one earlier, but in empowering the instructors to lead, I wanted to reiterate this a little bit, is encourage your team to teach like they're teaching their own child, right? And some of you are going, man, I could never teach my own kid. That's not what I'm talking about. You would want your child to be taught at the best. You don't want second rate for your children. You don't want second rate for your wife, your spouse, your friends. You want the best. And so that's what I'm getting at. Encourage your instructors to teach as if it was their kid, that they're dealing with. How would you want someone to treat that kid? Another thing that we do to empower the instructors is we share victories. We call it wins. Every meeting that we start typically with some sort of wins. It's a little monotonous at times, and I think sometimes the team's probably like, here we go again with wins. But I just want to start the meeting with something positive. I want positive thoughts and to be able to kind of celebrate a little bit like, man, that's awesome that happened this week, or that this, but share victory. So I'm going to share a quote that came just this weekend that we just passed. We had belt testing. By the time belt testing was over, I had gotten a message to myself, our chief instructor, and my wife, who's our program director at headquarter location. And it went like this. I know you guys know, but I'll just keep saying it. You have the best team in the world as a person on the mat. So this is a parent who trains as a person on the mat. I know what it means to have you guys in my corner, but I can't tell you what it means to have you all in my kids' corner. Thank you for doing this with your lives. We're better because of this. At the post-testing debrief, the entire team got to hear that. I share those things, not every time, because we get a fair amount of positive feedback. We get some negative feedback too, but I try to pick those things and share them with the team. When we share those nuggets with them, I remind them, you are the one that's out there on the mat teaching that class. You're the one. I'm trying to give them a sense of ownership and trying to help them to see it's them. I know we laugh about it because sometimes our team will go, but your name's on the building. And we laugh. It's a joking thing, but it doesn't matter. You're the one in there. Take ownership of that. So we're constantly pushing that idea again of ownership and getting their skin in the game. So another thing too is I really, we're talking about empowering the instructors to lead. I talk to the instructors about this, like, to an extent, we kind of take a little bit of responsibilities for not directly, but some responsibility for how people perform in life and how they do, right? Because, if I'm teaching little, Susie to be a stand-up person in a bullying situation, I'm kind of giving her guidance on how to get through a tough spot, right? And so, the proof is kind of in the pie. And so we're constantly reminding the team, we're responsible for how these guys perform at school and in social environments. And it's so important that we take ownership of that and that we have pride in doing it and doing it well. We want these kids to go home unscathed and happy every day, right? And so we have to take ownership of that. And so whenever I get back notes from parents or phone calls from parents going, hey, my son just had X happen and was able to get himself out of it and get, home safe or whatever, I share that with the team. I share it to empower them, to encourage them. So I'm going to give you guys another one. I used to teach a little guy about, 12 years ago, private lessons. And he trained in classes. I did private lessons with him. He trained in classes, did private lessons with him. And he earned his black belt. Amazing little guy. Was on the demo team and got into junior high like a lot of kids do. And they've become kind of an athlete and they're very disciplined. And he got into music and some other areas and got very good and has actually been successful. So anyway, the point of the story is I got a phone call randomly a few days ago. Keep in mind, 12 years ago, I'm working with this little guy. This little guy is, I believe, 18 now. And his dad calls. And his dad calls because he knows two other kids that need to be in Team Chip, right? But they can't afford it. And he's going, hey, Chip, could we do something to scholarship these kids through my business? Because these guys need this really, really bad because of what it did for my son. It was his son that I taught private lessons. And I said, sure, let's talk about that and let's see if we can figure out something. And so we're chatting about it. And he goes, oh, by the way, I got a couple of stories to tell you. You'll never believe this. So he said, I was a little concerned about my son, being small. And so he said, that was one of the reasons we put him in your program. And then we got him private lessons with you and you spent a lot of time with him and, your instructor spent a lot of time with him. And he said a couple of years ago, he got into a situation where he needed to defend his little sister. An older, bigger kid cornered him somewhere in a hallway in a building. And he said little sister came running to me. So little sister came running to dad. Dad. I'm going to say Joe. Joe got kicked, Joe being the son. Okay, Joe got kicked. And so dad bolts to find Joe, the son, and walks up on Joe standing outside a restroom door. And he's just standing there and he goes, hey, what happened? And Joe says, Dad, all is good. There was this kid who's a little older, a little bigger, was picking on my little sister over here. And he said, I told him he couldn't do that. And he came after me. And he said, so I took care of business. He said, but Dad, I could have done this and I could have broke that and I could have done this, but I didn't. So the dad walks in the bathroom, checks on the kid. The kid's at the bathroom sink, crying his eyes out. And the dad wanted to tell me. He's like, having him in your program was one of the best things we could have ever done for him because he gets looked at sometimes as a softer kid because he's into music and these other things. And he said, that's not the only time. And he gave me a couple of different stories. So anyway, the whole point of that story is I take those and I feed them back to the team. I go, guys, this is what we're doing. I mean, if we can just touch a handful of lives in a way like this, it is so worth it. So, and again, all of this is back to empowering the instructors to lead, empowering them to take ownership. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but we have some incentive programs. We have a bonus structure that we use with our key leaders. Another thing is we do just kind of random giveaways. I'll be in an instructor meeting and I will have kind of planned ahead. Everybody today is going to get a, $10, gift card to somewhere, or, one I really enjoy doing because I think food is always all I think about is we'll just have, the other day I went to, during an instructor meeting right before it, I ran down and bought a huge tray of Chick-fil-A nuggets and brought back. The team didn't expect it. Walked in, hey guys, instructor meeting time, by the way, got you nuggets, and they're pumped. They love it. So we're constantly trying to do things to kind of excite them, make it a little bit fun for them, feed them a little bit, and do some kind of fun stuff. So those are some different things that you can do to kind of empower that leadership in your instructors and empower that idea of ownership as well. And, what are the benefits of this? It's long-term sustainability. It's knowing that your vision and your mission is going to get carried on by people that truly care about it. If you can get them to take ownership, right? It's huge, because I think that's one thing that, I know when I die, right? I can't take it with me. But at least up to the day I die, I want to know that I think I'm leaving something better than I found it. I'm leaving something that at least is an asset to our community, an asset to our nation, not a liability. Something that's going to be positive and going to matter. Will it matter after I'm gone? For me, no. But will it matter for the people that we leave it to? 100%. Absolutely. That should be our goal, to leave something, again, better than we found it. So, the long-term vision is you get a team of people that take ownership and truly love what they do and they truly care. They'll carry that vision, they'll carry that mission, and they'll continue to go, especially if it's positive and it's like I said, in business terms, an asset to society. And, another kind of takeaway I think is empowerment is not a one-time thing. Keep the mission and vision in front of them all the time. Check in with them all the time. Have consistent meetings. Remind them constantly that you're their servant, that you're there to give them the tools that they need so that they can do their job well. That benefits all of us. So it's not a one-time thing. It's something that we have to do over and over and over. So today, we explored the idea of, getting your instructors, your staff team to take ownership. Hopefully you grab some nuggets out of that. I really do. I'm really passionate about this, and I'm not always the best at it. It's been a learning curve, 30 years of operating our business. And for the first, 10, that was when I was labeled the benevolent dictator, by the way. I was horrible at it. I had no idea. I thought you just made a decision, told people what to do, and they went and did it. But we have slowly learned it's about relationships. It's about building trust over time. It's about making deposits in the emotional bank account of other people so that when I do need to make a correction and take a little bit out, there's something to take. I'm going to say that again because I think that's really, really important. It's important as leaders that we make deposits in our team's emotional bank accounts. What does that mean? I'm kind to them. I'm graceful with them. I'm encouraging to them. I'm trying to pour into them in a positive way. I'm asking them, what do you need? And if they say I need X, I'm delivering on it. I'm not just asking for fluff. I'm asking because I really want to know, how can we make your job better? How can we make your life better? How can we make what you do better? And that's putting deposits in the emotional bank account so that one day that someone makes a misstep, I can snatch them a little bit and go, whoa, that's not going to cut it. And I'm not taking out of a bank account that I haven't deposited into. And hopefully the relationship that's been developed through those emotional and relational deposits for years will withstand the correction and will come through the other side. And because of that relationship, they're going to know that I truly do care, or I wouldn't have poured into this relationship for the last 5 years, right? Or the last year, or the last 10, whatever that is. And so I think it's, super important that we're pouring into the team at all times and encouraging this. I really hope that was helpful for you guys. Again, the ideas of kind of creating ownership and empowering your team to be great leaders. But again, I just beat the word to death, but ownership. We do talk about this a lot amongst my wife and myself and our key leaders. Like, how do we get the team to own that? How do we get them to own that? owning it in our mind just means that they care for it more than if they didn't own it. Again, back to that drive it like you stole it idea. So hopefully you got some nuggets out of that. Love you guys. Like it, share it, and all of those great things. And comment, send us notes. Let us know what you'd like to hear about and how, what you would like to hear about. If there's anything around the teamship business, around the martial arts industry, or business in general and leadership, we'd love to hear from you. You guys go have a great day. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review because we need you. We appreciate you so much. And without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success. So go out there and never be outworked.